Welcome to your first Aside. An Aside is an optional lecture. The purpose of these lectures is to review a programming feature. If you're an experienced programmer, you can skip these lectures. Otherwise, let's get into it. For this lecture, we are going to learn about JSON. It's going to become relevant in an upcoming lecture. So, what is JSON? JSON is a format for reading and writing data. It's short for JavaScript Object Notation. As its name suggests, JSON was heavily inspired by JavaScript. However, you are not required to know JavaScript to learn JSON. There are plenty of developers who learn JSON without learning JavaScript. The reason is simple. JSON is considered incredibly easy to learn. Unlike other languages, JSON does not have features like functions, loops, or complex logic. That's not the purpose of using JSON. The main goal of JSON is to store data, plain and simple. Why would we want a language dedicated to storing data? That's a good question. There are various programming languages. Nowadays, developing an application with multiple programming languages is not uncommon. This poses a problem. What if we want to share data between languages? We need a format that each language can read. That's where JSON jumps into the picture. Almost all languages can read and write JSON. As we've learned, WordPress is written with PHP and JavaScript. These are two different programming languages. In some cases, we need to communicate between both languages. JSON is the preferred format for sending and receiving data. Like most languages, various data types are supported. We can store strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, and objects. We haven't had the opportunity to review the object data type. Let's talk about it during our discussion of JSON. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to a playground for JSON. This playground will help us validate our JSON code. To get started with JSON, we need to add a pair of curly brackets. You can think of these curly brackets as a container for your data. More on that later. Next, let's begin adding some data. The format for adding data is similar to creating a file header. JSON follows a key value format. There are some crucial differences. Firstly, the key must be wrapped with double quotes. For our first key, let's try adding a property called name. Key value pairs are separated with a colon. As for the value, our name can be considered a string. Just like PHP, strings are created with double quotes. Single quotes are not supported. If we were to use single quotes, the playground would throw an error. Always use double quotes. Let's add our name. Pretty simple, right? Let's keep playing around with the other data types. New values can be added by separating them with commas. Putting new values on new lines is recommended. Technically, you could put everything into a single line. However, your code may be difficult to read. Let's add a property called age. Numbers can be added as is. Our example is a whole number, but decimal values are supported too. Let's move on to booleans. The next example will be called is hungry with a value of true. Booleans can be true or false. Keep in mind, the property name must always be in double quotes. The data type does not impact the naming of the property. Secondly, spaces are not allowed. We are restricted to alphanumeric characters and underscores. There are two more data types. The next data type is an array. Arrays allow us to store a collection of values within a single property. Let's add an array called hobbies. Arrays are created with square brackets. Inside these brackets, we can add a series of values separated by a comma. I'm going to add some hobbies. The final data type is an object. They're very similar to an array. An object is a data type for storing a group of data. In some cases, data may be related to one another. An object may sound similar to an array, but there's one distinction between objects and arrays. Unlike arrays, an object's values must be key-value pairs. Let's look at an example by adding a property called job. The syntax for creating an object is a pair of curly brackets. Hold on a moment. Does this mean our entire file is an object? You'd be correct with that assessment. We've been creating an object all along. Array values are referenced through their index. As we've learned, arrays are zero-based. In our hobbies array, we can grab the first item of the array with the number 0. Objects are different. We can grab a value by the name of the key. For example, if we want the name, we can grab it by typing name. Interestingly, we are allowed to nest objects inside an object. These features allow us to organize our data. In this example, we're going to store data related to our job. Inside the object, I'll add a key called company. The value will be Udemy. Just like that, we've created our first JSON file. There's not much else to say about JSON. In upcoming lectures, we are going to start writing JSON for configuring our theme. There are going to be plenty of opportunities to get practice. Feel free to experiment with the playground. For convenience, the playground will recommend some examples. You can click on these examples to view different combinations of data. Once you're finished playing with JSON, I'll see you in the next lecture.